Hey, welcome, 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 and thank you so very much for joining me on another episode of Talking Innovation. Now, this is where we talk about all the unbelievable, incredible, remarkable, and continuing innovation that seems to just be swirling around the globe right now. It's really, I was just telling my wife last night, man, the world is in a wild place like I've never seen in my life with AI and all the other stuff that's going on. And man, the innovation that you're seeing with the needs of the industry feeding this AI frenzy, it's pretty remarkable. I've told you many times as well, just a Gilligan here, no professor, but I seek them out and I always get really interesting people that are experts in their own right. And certainly we all have a story if we get a chance to tell one. And I'm excited today to have a chance to talk with the founder of Stark Analytics, a gentleman by the name of Christian Torres. He's joining us today. Christian, it's great to have you.
Grant, it's great to be here.
Yeah, so tell me about you. And look, the way I usually go is I tell people, hey, look you up on LinkedIn. They can read all about your background. And I'll allow you just to push it from the dock however you'd like. I'll just let you kick it off however you'd like and talk about whatever's on your mind today.
Yeah, so I'll give the very short version, which opens itself up naturally to other questions. Go back in time, about 18 years ago, I was a New York City police officer. I made a series of mind-blowingly terrible decisions. When I say terrible, I mean I found myself in federal prison for about a decade, and I was forced into solitary confinement. My mind was systematically broken, and I had to rebuild my entire operating system and a new life, a whole new identity for myself, because everything that I was going to do, obviously, was no longer on the table. And that path led me to business analytics, forecasting, Excel, tool development, and then eventually now with the age of AI, I have just never looked back, because for me, that's where I found my solace, my home, and I've been doing that for over 15 years now.
Wow, that's amazing. So, I really don't even care, to dig up the history that got you there. I think we all can imagine to our best ability what it must have been like. But I'm really intrigued on how did that get you? How did that connection occur from that kind of dire circumstance and situation to spur interest in analytics of all things?
Yeah. So when I found myself sitting in that cell by myself, I was stripped away of any tools. I had no computer, no internet, no phone. I didn't even have a notebook. So I was forced to get very comfortable living inside of my own head.
Right.
And what I discovered was that if I was going to come up with a plan to change my future, to figure out what the next chapter held for me, I had to play out certain scenarios in my mind. Okay, so what if I decide I want to become a carpenter? What would that look like? Well, when I get out, I have to take this course. Maybe I can, do this training while I'm here. If I want to become an artist, if I want to become a musician, all the different pathways, right? I wasn't going to become an NBA star. I'm too short. But I knew.
Right, there were some limitations, right?
Yeah, I had to figure out what was I going to do.
Oh, you could. Who there was Spud Webb? Wasn't that the guy's name? Come on, it's
fair enough.
But I hear what you mean.
The talent wasn't there.
And
I thought, if I'm going to rebuild my identity, I have to play these scenarios out. And I got really, really good at doing that. And there's actually a book that ties into that story, which is Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, which plays a big part in what I do today. So we'll kind of come back to that. But I had to get really good at playing these things out systematically. And when I got out of that solitary confinement, they gave me a job at the prison factory. They sat me in front of a computer, and I had Microsoft Excel. And for me, that became my creative medium. That became the canvas where I could build systems with defined inputs and build out like scenarios, right? So what would happen if I changed this number? What would happen if this? and you have all these series of connected formulas, it just made sense to me because now my mind was already programmed to think 10, 12, 15 steps ahead. The difference is now I could actually build that model and watch it play out and then change one input variable and the whole model changed. And I loved it. I fell in love with that process. And that's how I transitioned from that dark place to analytics.
So I'm curious because you talk about something that has been top of mind for me lately, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. So when you talk about first analytically stepping through in your mind, and then you're out and they put you with a spreadsheet. Mm-hmm. And, a spreadsheet, as you know, it's been around for decades, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, there used to be worksheets that ran on mainframes, even before, Multiplan and that ran on mainframes. But and a characteristic of a spreadsheet is it's deterministic, right? I mean, you put in the formula. Now, you can build it such that you can what if till the cows come home, and that was the brilliant thing about it. But the point being, you hit recalculate, and it's going to be the exact same recalculate every single time. Mm-hmm. We've just entered a new era where, for the first time in the history of information systems, executives are choosing probabilistic tools over deterministic tools. It'll probably be right over it will absolutely be right. And I find that fascinating because it's the amazing and remarkable outcomes that AI has demonstrated. But do you see how that's such a risk? Mm-hmm. I mean, look at Pocket OS that happened. You hear about that? Pocket OS a week or two ago, an agent deleted the production database.
Yep. I remember that
completely. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a company killer. Fortunately, they were able to restore, but I find it interesting. So I just am curious to hear your thoughts about this significant leap from a very deterministic environment to now one largely that's being influenced by a probabilistic infrastructure.
Yeah, that is a great question. What's funny is that even before AI, I was actually trying to find ways and building models that introduced some probabilistic, models into the way I use spreadsheets. So I would use like historical analysis to figure out normal standard deviation and ranges for variability, and then actually use randomization factors to kind of simulate. So kind of like Monte Carlo simulation, I would create an engine and simulate thousands of paths and kind of see where they all converge. I was doing that already. But your question around AI right now, I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with using probabilistic tools, because the reality is that the opposite can be just as dangerous. If you use deterministic tools and then you fall into the trap of thinking that just because you ran the model and it landed on one particular number, and now you are married to that idea that the number should be this, that can also be kind of toxic, right? You have an obsession with precision, with certainty, and that certainty is a false certainty. So I think that the future is somewhere in between. You cannot be subject to the hallucinations of these tools, and every time you ask it a question, it's going to give you a different answer. You can't also live in the rigidity of putting a spreadsheet model together and saying, well, we're going to gain exactly 10.3% in sales. Yeah. You know what? You're probably wrong. It might be 13, it might be 9, it might be somewhere in between. But thinking in terms of ranges and probabilities does have a really, really crucial place to play in business. And we're just, I think, overcorrecting. We went way too much from the age of spreadsheets and deterministic models to now saying, hey, we're going to trust this thing that really, for most 99.5% of the population, is a complete black box. We have no idea how we're getting the answers that we're getting.
Yep, that's exactly right. And I think you raise a really good point. I think uh, that's kind of how AI has demonstrated one of its really significant attributes, right? Its ability to not be fixed or myopic in the way it looks at a problem, a circumstance, a situation. Hence the reason we found 1.2 million new compounds, or 400,000 new materials. I mean, the AI has discovered that we didn't discover, simply because we don't look at the circumstances with the same, what I call, spherical 360-degree perspective, right? We think we do, but we really can't to the degree that they can, they being AI. So I think
And
that's a good
that's
point.
really the role. Yeah, that is the point. The whole point of like using AI right now. I don't try to venture to guess where AI is going to be 5-10 years from now, but I can tell you that right now, the best use of AI that I have found for myself as a business owner is that it helps pressure test my ideas, and it helps surface questions that I otherwise may have not even thought of. And so
Yep.
I don't use it as an answer machine. I use it as a way to generate more insightful questions and consider angles and areas of the problem set or the thing that I'm trying to build that I otherwise would not have considered.
Yeah. I've had a lot of fun actually, excuse me, kind of creating personas, right? And teams within the AI that each bring their own discipline. And it does take, unlike defining an agent to be that particular role, if you're working in, Anthropic or something like that, it's a little bit different, but you really can. It's extraordinary because, to your point, when you understand at a CEO level, let's call it, because now I think everybody can be the CEO of their own, of their own making, of their own desire, of their own company, of their own whatever, and they then can have the staff. And so if you can just think to yourself, okay, I want to build some software. What do I need? I need a developer. I need product marketing manager, product management, and so you kind of shape out these roles, and that's how you can get those other perspectives that, I've never been a product manager or a developer or anything, right? As long as you don't let out the leash too much and give it too much authority, put it in automatic mode, because then you're in trouble.
Correct. So you will probably love the thing that I've actually been working on that I first built for myself, because as soon as you said personas, I said, okay, you're gonna like this. I bought a limitless pendant, and it was like an AI wearable that I would take to different conferences because I wanted to be present, not take notes. And I found myself going to multiple events throughout the week. At the end of the week, I was trying to download the transcripts and then figure out how I could apply those things to my offers, my marketing strategy, my business. And then it occurred to me that the people that I was listening to, they had a lot of content out there in the world already. So, I'll give an example. Gary Vee. Okay, Gary Vee talks about social media. He has so many books, articles, podcasts, tweets. There's so much free public content that he's put out there in the world that if I used AI to collect all of that and then kind of develop a persona that was actually a representation of Gary Vee, how he approaches problems. Okay, so now I can do that. That's great. That's one person. You can create a custom GPT modeled after somebody with just one layer of basic research. But what if you actually leverage the full power of multiple AI tools that have unique strength in searching different areas of the internet, whether it be Gemini for YouTube videos, Perplexity for articles and periodicals, newspapers, or you use Grok for social media. You can source the information from multiple places, bring them all together, and then here's the really powerful part. I said, what if I put all these personas in one space together and then created the governance structure that would dictate how they are to interact with each other, create tension, and then force kind of like a synergistic approach to helping me with my problem. So now I can staff my executive AI board with the exact minds that I want at my table,
right,
with knowledge of me, and then they have to work together using their subject matter expertise. And that came from Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, where he would sit down, close his eyes, and he would call them the invisible counselors. These were men like Ford, Lincoln, Edison, Carnegie, and he would imagine that they were sitting at a table with him, pressure testing his ideas, helping him to formulate, what the next thing was, helping him improve himself. And I built that for myself, and it changed everything. I mean, it was amazing. And I started bringing this to friends. And they said, oh, you definitely have to make this available to small business owners that don't have the benefit of an executive board. They're not world leaders. They don't have a cabinet. They're not Fortune 500 CEOs. They don't have this board of directors. Can you imagine what would happen if even the small business owners started getting the pressure, the feedback from those people that they already read their books, watch their YouTube videos, so the trust is already built in? They can go so much further.
Yep. Well, I think you're hitting on something that's occurring right now in a big way, in a very broad swath across many industries. Think companies like McKesson for a second, and similar, that historically have just charged enormous amounts of money for brain time and really brilliant delivery of that content, but it's not ever decision making as much as it's large euphemistic rolling cloud kind of stuff. And those days are gone. I mean, those organizations have crumbled. And it's going to be very much, I'll give you my analogy, okay? In the late 80s, early 90s, there was a very resistant industry to the internet. And they all were, and there were hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of them all across the country. And they are a shell of themselves today. And that's newspapers. And it's the internet. They said, oh, no way, right? And that change, I mean, it was huge. Look what it did to classifieds. You talk to younger people, they don't even know what I'm talking about when I say classifieds, but it's the black and white mouse print that what newspapers lived on, advertising, of course. But my point is, today, at a much broader scale, AI is just wiping out industries and business functions at an unprecedented rate. And I think it's literally changing how the whole world rolls. I mean, look at the stock market right now, Christian. I mean, we're definitely in the K economy, because you see I live in Washington State. I don't know about you in Florida, but here premium gas is $6+ a gallon. And you're not making 150K, you're really struggling. And then you have the other people that are in the stock market. And if you look at it, it's, NASDAQ, S&P 500 both hit all-time highs. Dow has been flirting with it. I mean, it's really, the world's weird right now.
We were in the information age. The internet kind of gave birth to that, really. And we came to understand and really, really value knowledge workers, right? So in professional services, knowledge workers, that was like the new commodity, or the new value that companies were seeking to bring in. You want these people that are really smart, that can look at a problem, that can solve it. Well, problem right now that AI is actually solving, I don't think this is a bad thing, is that it's going to strip away all the non-value added activity, not work, activity that would go on in these organizations, because eventually the marketplace is already realizing, okay, it's not impressive anymore that you put together a pitch deck. That's not impressive. It's not impressive that you were able to build a spreadsheet model for like a budget plan. That's not impressive. That is literally 2 sentences. Congratulations. And if you have something like Whisperflow, you didn't even have to type it. You could literally just tell Claude, build me this thing, and it will. So if that's the case, then what is the real value that firms are bringing to their clients? And so it's going to strip away all of that, and it's going to put pressure on pricing models. Because if I'm a customer and you are a consultant, you're a specialist, you're somebody, a professional service, and you're telling me that your billable rate is $300 an hour and this is going to take 10 hours. 10 hours for what exactly? For somebody
I can pay a max plan on I can pay a max plan on Anthropic for what, $200 a month. And I mean, I can sit there all day long and do whatever I need to do. I think you're exactly right. And I think I think that I think there's just a drastic change in so many aspects of our economy. Our youth are really totally afraid of AI. I hate to say it, but our education level it's lower than the previous generation for the first time since we've been tracking it. So our scores are, on a decline. That's not good. And here's my thesis. And I was reading about this 2 years ago. And it was ironically, I think Stanford or McKesson or one of these think tank papers. But I was really intrigued about, as the intelligence at our fingertips becomes more ubiquitous in virtually any discipline I choose, what's going to be really important in the workforce in, say, 2 years, right? It isn't going to be IQ, because I can find 180 IQ points in electrical engineering like that.
Yeah.
And I would suggest that what's going to be the difference is the EQ, the emotional quotient, the humanness of the operator. That's, I think, the key that we have to remember will be the difference and will ensure the production database doesn't get deleted, right? Or should. I mean, the idea of having a human involved to look at it without the sterility that sometimes you get from a data-driven choice, right? Sometimes you just, despite your recommendation, like we were talking about earlier, if you're expecting 10.3, if AI comes back with a recommendation, if it's just not right in your gut, that's something. AI's palms don't sweat when it gets nervous, because it doesn't get nervous like we do, right? And some of those human elements, I think we have to really preserve and I would argue ensure they're ingrained in our activity even more than ever before.
Yeah, so the Industrial Revolution gave birth to the need for quality management systems, right? So you have all this stuff being produced, but you need some humans that their sole focus is ensuring that the things that are being produced en masse are actually being done to spec, quality, customer needs, all those things, no defects. Great. So we have all these robust systems, ISO 9001, and every industry has their own versions, and that's necessary. Yep. We are now entering into an area where the quality management systems are going to have to evolve, because you're going to have 2 key roles in the AI era. You're going to have the orchestrator, which is the person that actually stitches together and kind of figures out all the various AI tools, how they're supposed to work together, kind of like conducting a band. All right, well, this one's going to start here, it's going to kick in here, building out the workflows, figuring out the stack. That's the orchestrator, not the doer, not the executor. That's the orchestrator. The AI is going to be doing most of the execution layer. And then you have the collaborators. The collaborators are interesting. Collaborators are going to work with the AI. They don't orchestrate them. They don't decide which tools are going to be used. These are the employees of the future. They're the collaborators that will have to work with AI, but their primary job is going to be to serve as that injection or that place where EQ, it shows up the most. It's the people that are doing the work day in, day out with the AI handling some of the execution layer, but the human in the middle model, those collaborators, their key job is making sure that what the orchestrator set in motion, they're going to be right there by the side of the AI, monitoring the output, ensuring that things are flowing smoothly, making sure that they're verifying that nothing, is being done that's outside of the parameters. That is a critical job, just like quality technicians today have to do that for a machine, a CNC machine, and that's very important. Think about the quality managers that are responsible for aerospace and defense. You can't have a 99% accuracy on a missile. It has to be above that. And so with AI, we need a quality management system approach to have humans, QAs, QC, on that process that the orchestrators will set in motion.
One of the things too, and I'm curious to hear what you think about this, because I agree with you, and I'll take it a step further. And we've already talked about deterministic, probabilistic, and some of the dynamics. But when you look at the requirements from a governance, auditing, and reporting perspective, okay, in the deterministic world, it's like, I've built my building on rock. It's not going anywhere. In the probabilistic world, it's like a floating platform. Now, the analogy being the behavior of the AI in this probabilistic world, albeit we've got it pretty tightly defined and we've got the workflows and we've integrated RAG, and there's still a chance for a little deviation from what I want. There's still, because there's still a different answer each time I put in the exact same prompt, right? This is the issue. And so in a deterministic environment, I can come in, hey, Christian, good to see you. Okay, I can't believe it's already 8th of the month. I'm here for the audit, right? I do the audit. Yep, you're all set. You're all checked. See you next month. And unless something drastic changes, it's a set it and forget it environment when you're deterministic. This is what's different in probabilistic, because you can't set it and forget it because it's different every single interaction. I'm talking about that individual lang chain that occurred and the handoffs. They have to be, you have to have oversight and really know you can certify the behavior of how that AI behaved, don't you?
So you do. Now let's go back, let's say 15, 20 years before AI was really a thing in the marketplace. I mean, maybe the government and certain, divisions maybe had
machine learning and stuff. Yeah. But it wasn't like transformer-like.
No,
that's what changed the game.
Yeah, not like that. But with a human organization, all humans, no AI, there are certain decisions that we accept and we expect them to be made through judgment, discernment, human capabilities. And then there are certain things that need to be deterministic, and we write detailed work instructions, SOPs, because we need it to be done exactly the same way every single time.
When so this reaches 7, turn it to 5.
Yeah, you can't deviate. So with AI, it's no different. With AI, you can use AI for certain things that where it's okay to be a little bit probabilistic. So in things like brainstorming, ideation, problem solving at the higher levels. But when you start getting into things that need to be by nature or sensitivity deterministic, because the outcome could, cost lives, cost millions of dollars, where the stakes are so high that it has to be, then the trick is you use AI at the levels that are appropriate, and then you use it to help you build the deterministic system that you will implement, right? A simple version of that would be, I need a spreadsheet that's going to help me calculate let's say a pricing calculator. And I want to be consistent. I want to always make sure I factor in all my fixed costs and everything. Now, I don't want to have to ask Claude or GPT or Gemini every single time, hey, how much should I bill for this? Because it might not get it right every single time. That's probabilistic. But if I give it all the variables that I need to be able to replicate in this deterministic system, then it can build the tool or the layer that will be deterministic. I take it from there. There's the handoff. And now I run with it and operate it in that fashion where it's repeatable. And then at the tail end of that process, AI can now play another probabilistic role, which is in the interpretation of some of the information that came out of that system. So
and
AI
possibly improving it, right?
Yes, exactly. So you could, just like a human and a machine. In the workplace, you have humans, you have machines. Machines do things the same way every single time because you need them to. And humans, when you need them to do it the same way, you give them very rigid work instructions. But when you don't, you trust them. You give them, agency. You give them creative license, whatever you want to call it. We do that for ourselves too. And we just have to figure out how to do that with AI.
Yeah, I think that's the conundrum, really, because I don't know. I guess it's really not much different. But I'm thinking in my mind, right? My son, he's a young man now, and my trust in him is at a level where I just know he wouldn't do some things that could be, that would be detrimental, catastrophic. Whereas a machine, because that's what we're talking about, I don't know where or how I can get to that equal level of trust and comfort in not making like some catastrophic move. And I don't know why that is. Maybe it's the absence of flesh, of the absence of conscience, of something. I don't know. But for me, I don't look at them the same. So I wouldn't feel about trusting them the same. And it seems like that's where we're going to have to get.
We will. And the trick there is defining specific roles. I'll use two human examples, an intern and a mentor. If you are a business owner and you have a mentor, that mentor will give you advice. They will ask good questions. They will push you to think about things in different ways. They might inspire you. They might challenge you, but they're not going to do the work for you. And ultimately, that they have zero accountability for the results of your actions. They will advise you. You go back to your business, you implement the systems. Ultimately, if it fails and the company goes under, you're to blame, right? The buck stops with you. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't have mentors to help us like pressure test and enhance our thinking. Then you have an intern. The intern's great to delegate tasks to. You have them do some of the work, but you also don't let the intern do the work, put together the final presentation, the deliverable, send it to the client, all with zero help, assistance, or review. And so right now, AI can play one of those two roles. It can be a mentor. It can be something that inspires thought, creativity, questions, serves as like a, kind of red teaming your ideas and your business. one of the most fascinating things that I've done is I actually asked 7 different LLMs at the highest frontier, deep thinking, versions that they had. I said, here's my entire business model. This is what I do. These are my services, my offering. Here's my LinkedIn profile. Here's my DISC profile. Everything it could learn about me. I said, I want you to build a comprehensive SWOT analysis on my business, but specifically with a focus on AI disruption. So is my business in the crosshairs where I need to change some things, or otherwise I'm going to really be in trouble 2-3 years from now? And what are the things that I should actually lean into to help solidify my place in the market? Just that exercise alone of having multiple AI tools do that, and then I synthesized it all together in like Claude. I had all of them, put together into one master SWOT. That shed more light on the things that I should focus on than any single night session with a cup of coffee, staying up late, burning the midnight oil could have done for myself.
Yeah, for me, one of the things that I unequivocally know without even asking, you understand, but I'm really not convinced this is out in the wild pervasively. In fact, I think companies woefully miss the mark when it comes to teaching prompting, teaching and understanding prompting. For the first time, we're at a point almost where, in English, in the very brief time I was at college, it was one of my favorite courses. And I think it was because my instructor, but, it was always about writing more concisely, right? Writing more, make sure the reader is informed, but trying to use as few words as possible to really pierce the point, right? Not elaborate and repeat yourself and arguably be redundant. You know what? Now, when I write a prompt, I'm redundant, arguably, when I say thorough, complete, detailed, rigorous, right? And that's all in one sentence. And so I think talk a little bit about the critical importance of prompts and what you recommend for people, because I really think, sometimes my prompts get really long, and I remember my wife asking me about it, and I explained to her, here's the way I look at it. I think I've spoken about this on the program before, but I essentially look at, in your analogy, I've got an assistant. I've got this new intern that knows everything that's on the internet, or almost, but is as dumb as a rock without the right prompt.
Yes.
Additionally, in that analogy, I would never, even if it was as smart as everything on the internet, I wouldn't take an intern's content without first inspecting what I expected. That's for sure.
Yes.
But if you ask someone that has that depth and breadth of knowledge, hey, can you write a better business letter for me? I believe you're going to get the effort back from that individual commensurate to the effort you put in to the prompt, right? So if you skip the rock and say, hey, they're going to say, you're going to just kind of get that simple blah. But if you really elaborate on role, definition, outcome, method, every single thing you can think about what it is you're interrogating, the results can be just profoundly better. So talk about the importance of prompts. Talk about what you'd recommend people do.
So you highlighted 2 things there. The first one I'll start with is when you're too short, too simple with your instructions. Let's for a second, I always like to do this. Let's pretend AI doesn't exist. What would that look like in a human interaction? I say, Grant, hey, let's get together sometime. Have a good day. When are we getting together? Sometime. That is not defined, very vague. It doesn't actually, that's network talk. That doesn't actually lead us anywhere. Nothing gets solved, and you're not going to get any, good outcomes out of that. It's fluff language. It doesn't mean anything. If I say, hey, are you free, next week on Tuesday? We can set aside, meet at your office. I'll prepare the agenda. Now that's kind of like the detailed prompt. I agree. We need that. But I'm going to offer a possibly very unconventional, and some people might disagree with this. I think that the emphasis on prompt engineering is going to very, very soon become completely obsolete, unnecessary. We are not going to have to worry about prompt engineering. Here's why. I use this tool called Whisperflow. Now, if I just tell it, write me an essay, okay, of course, that is not going to be sufficient. But instead of worrying about telling it, okay, I want an essay that's going to have this title, this theme. I want to give it all the details in a structured prompt, best practices for prompt engineering. That's going to take a lot of brain power for me to do it. And it will maybe get me the result that I need. But what about if I do this? What if I use normal stream of consciousness? I just describe without worrying about structure, without worrying about following any prompt engineering best practices. Mm-hmm. And then I have that AI structure that into the correct prompt, output that I would then use as the input into the tool that I'm going to use. And the best example of that is with image generation. If I want a really, really good image, I don't go to Gemini and turn on image generation and try to describe, I want a dark, moody, cinematic scene, and give it all the adjectives to describe the perfect prompt to create the image. Instead, what I do is I just blabber. I go to Claude and I turn on the voice mode and I say, look, I've got this idea. I'm just talking to the wall here. I want an image, kind of like a movie poster, something that's kind of dramatic. I just talk like a human. And then I say, Claude, take that and create an optimized, efficient prompt that I can feed into Gemini to create the image. All of a sudden, my normal human language, my monologue, is converted into a structured prompt, which gets fed into there. And I'll tell you what, those are the best results I ever get. When I have an interpretation layer, I have an AI take my normal speak and convert it into the structured prompt that I feed into another tool. And AI is getting so good that we're going to get to the point where it's not going to need us to do any prompt structuring. It's going to take our normal human language and interpret that appropriately. It's getting better and better every day.
We're close to that now, and I think you're exactly right. And I think that the tools that you're describing will go away. I won't need to have a man in the middle to interpret my language, because the AI themselves will get so sophisticated that they'll be able to take it. No different than you see what I call leapfrogging that is occurring in the model capabilities. First you had Mythos and Frontier, and now ChatGPT Cyber just was announced. I heard it on the news this morning. And apparently it's only going to be released to government and cybersecurity companies.
That's not scary at all.
But I think what you're speaking to, and I think you're spot on, is the phenomenal rate of change, the accelerated pace, the compression. It's unlike anything I've ever experienced in the 43 years that I've been in this industry, which is pretty remarkable. But I love it. That's what's so exciting is look at all the news. I'm just I wish I was younger so I could live longer to see where this is all going to go. But it's super, super exciting. So, hey, Christian, before we wrap this up, will you take a minute and tell everybody about your company, what you do, and at least give them a chance if they want to connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So the company's name is Stark Analytics, and there are really two premier offerings, right? There's two different areas. One is on the analytical side, big surprise, right? Based on my background. And
Yeah.
so that is actually what's called the Stark Decision Intelligence Framework. That is, in fact, working with a company to say, let's build a proprietary model for a repeatable, scalable decision system with your data set, your inputs that will help you make those recurring decisions over and over again. So it's essentially using AI to help build those deterministic models that will take the human interpretation or gut feel, have the CEO stop being the bottleneck, right? Or the team leader. You can create these systems to help you run more efficiently. So that's the decision intelligence framework. Then on the other side is more of the strategic probabilistic, right? That's why I feel so comfortable in both areas. That's the Stark Advisory Board. And the Stark Advisory Board is, in fact, that space where you can request to build the exact board that you want with the people that you trust, the people that you read their books, watch their videos, look at their articles, go to the conferences.
Right, like we were talking about.
Yeah, and so I will actually build you an advisory board with the governance structure in your native LLM, whether it's ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini, Claude, doesn't matter. I build that for you so that you can actually have that team helping you 24/7 to improve your process of thinking, pressure testing your ideas, and making better decisions. And those are like the two flagship products that Stark Analytics offers.
That's outstanding. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, look up Christian Torres on LinkedIn. Find him. Stark Analytics is his company. This has been fascinating. Great story. Like I said, man, I believe everybody's got a story. Just got to give them a chance to tell it. And I'm really just super happy that I got a chance to have you on the program, Christian. Thanks so very much.
Thank you for having me, Grant. This has been amazing. So much fun.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you, man, we're going to have a lot of really cool, fun, interesting conversations talking innovation, because that's what we are now. And I really appreciate you being here. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. If so, please like it, share it, tell your friends, and we'll look forward to having you back on the next episode of Talking Innovation. Thanks so very much. And we're out.